Today we're diving into the fascinating world of ecological modeling, focusing on how scientists predict where species live using environmental data. With advances in computing and the availability of detailed environmental information, researchers can now model the geographic distributions of species more accurately than ever before. This is crucial for conservation, ecology, and understanding the impacts of climate change. In this video, we'll explore the maximum entropy method, or MaxEnt, a powerful tool for modeling species distributions using presence-only data. Let's begin by understanding why modeling species habitats is so important and how it's done. Ecological research, scientists often have detailed records of where a species has been found, but rarely know all the places where it is truly absent. This lack of absence data poses a significant challenge for traditional statistical modeling, which typically requires both presence and absence information. Especially in remote or poorly sampled regions, absence data can be unreliable or simply unavailable. As a result, methods that can work with presence-only data like MaxEnt are extremely valuable. These approaches allow researchers to make the most of the data they have, opening up new possibilities for studying species in diverse environments. MaxEnt, short for maximum entropy modeling, is a general-purpose machine learning method that estimates the most spread-out, or uniform probability distribution possible, given the constraints of the observed data. In the context of species distribution, MaxEnt uses environmental variables and known occurrence points to predict where a species is likely to be found. The method is mathematically precise and flexible, making it well-suited for ecological application. It can handle both continuous and categorical data, and it's particularly useful when only presence data are available. Let's look at how MaxEnt works in practice. To test the effectiveness of MaxEnt, researchers conducted a continental-scale study using two neotropical mammals, the lowland sloth, Bradypus variegatus, and a small montane rodent, Microrhizomes minutus. These species were chosen because they have well-documented occurrence records and distinct ecological patterns. By comparing MaxEnt's predictions to those from another presence-only method, GARP, scientists could evaluate which approach better estimated the species range. The study involved splitting occurrence data into training and testing sets, allowing for robust statistical assessment of model performance. Presence-only data refers to records where a species has been observed, without information about where it is absent. These data often come from museum specimens or field observations. Each record typically includes a geographic location and environmental measurements, such as temperature or precipitation. MaxEnt uses these occurrence points, along with environmental variables mapped across a region, to estimate the suitability of different areas for the species. This approach is especially valuable in regions where absence data are hard to obtain, making it a practical solution for global biodiversity studies. Key concept in ecological modeling is the distinction between a species' fundamental niche and its realized niche. The fundamental niche includes all environmental conditions where a species could survive and reproduce, while the realized niche is where it actually lives, influenced by factors like competition, predation, and barriers to movement. Because occurrence data only sample the realized niche, models like MaxEnt approximate this subset. Understanding this distinction helps set realistic expectations for what distribution models can achieve, especially when projecting into new regions or future climates. Once a niche-based model is built, it's typically projected into geographic space to create a map of predicted presence. This map shows areas where environmental conditions are suitable for the species, based on the variables used in the model. However, the predicted area is often larger than the species' actual range, since not all suitable areas are occupied due to barriers or other ecological factors. For conservation or management, further steps can refine these predictions, such as removing areas known to be uninhabited or heavily altered by humans. Choice of environmental variables is critical in modeling species distributions. Variables like temperature, precipitation, elevation, and vegetation type directly affect a species' survival and reproduction. For robust models, it's important to select variables that are relevant at the appropriate spatial scale and that generalize well to other regions or time periods. For example, bioclimatic variables are useful for global models, while land cover may be more important at local scales. Careful selection ensures that the model captures the key factors influencing the species' distribution. Presence-only modeling comes with several challenges. Occurrence data may be biased toward accessible areas, like near roads or rivers, and may contain errors in location or species identification. Sampling intensity can vary across regions, and the number of records may be too low for reliable modeling. Environmental variables themselves may have errors or may not fully capture the species' ecological requirements. Recognizing and addressing these pitfalls is essential for building accurate and useful models. MaxEnt is rooted in the maximum entropy principle from information theory. The idea is to estimate the probability distribution that is most uniform, or spread out, given the constraints of the observed data. In practice, this means MaxEnt finds the distribution that matches the average values of environmental variables at the occurrence points, without making unwarranted assumptions. This approach is mathematically rigorous and has been widely applied in fields ranging from physics to image processing, and now ecology. MaxEnt models the probability of species presence across a landscape by considering each pixel or location as a potential site. It uses environmental variables as features and adjusts their weights so that the predicted distribution matches the observed averages at the occurrence points. Regularization is used to prevent overfitting, ensuring that the model remains general and robust, even with limited data. The result is a continuous map of environmental suitability, where higher values indicate better conditions for the species. MaxEnt can incorporate various types of features derived from environmental variables. These include linear features, the variable itself; quadratic features, the variable squared; product features, interactions between variables; threshold features, indicating if a variable exceeds a certain value; and binary features for categorical data. By combining these, MaxEnt can model complex ecological responses and capture interactions between different environmental factors. The flexibility in feature selection is one of MaxEnt's strengths. MaxEnt shares similarities with other modeling approaches, such as generalized linear models, GLMs, and generalized additive models, GAMs, but it stands out because it requires only presence data. Unlike discriminative models, which directly model the probability of presence given the environment, MaxEnt is a generative model estimating the distribution of environments where the species occurs. This can be advantageous, especially when data are limited. MaxEnt's continuous output also allows for flexible thresholding and detailed suitability mapping. Make MaxEnt accessible, researchers develop user-friendly software with both graphical and command-line interfaces. Written in Java, the software runs on most computers and is freely available online. Users can input occurrence records and environmental data, select feature types, and adjust parameters like regularization and convergence thresholds. The software outputs continuous suitability maps, which can be interpreted directly or converted to binary predictions using chosen thresholds. EARP, or the genetic algorithm for rule set prediction, is another widely used method for modeling species distributions with presence-only data. It uses genetic algorithms to evolve sets of rules that predict suitable and unsuitable conditions. GARP produces binary predictions, and its results can vary depending on the random selection of models. In comparative studies, GARP serves as a benchmark to evaluate the performance of newer methods like MaxEnt. Brown-throated three-toed sloth, Bradypus variegatus, is a large arboreal mammal found in lowland forests from Honduras to Argentina. The small rodent Microrhizomes minutus inhabits middle to high elevations in the Andes. Both species have well-documented occurrence records, making them ideal for evaluating modeling methods. Their distinct ecological preferences, lowland forests for the sloth and montane habitats for the rodent, provide a robust test for the model. Modeling, researchers used a variety of environmental variables, including climate data, temperature, precipitation, cloud cover, elevation, and potential vegetation types. These variables were mapped across Latin America at a fine spatial resolution, providing a detailed environmental backdrop for the models. Data were sourced from global databases like the IPCC and USGS, ensuring consistency and broad coverage. Careful processing and selection of variables helped ensure that the models captured the key ecological factors for each species. Rigorously evaluate model performance, occurrence records were randomly split into training and testing sets. Typically 70% of the data were used to train the model, while the remaining 30% were reserved for testing. This approach allowed researchers to assess how well the models predicted new unseen occurrences, providing a robust measure of predictive accuracy. Multiple random partitions were used to ensure that results were not dependent on a single split. Model performance was evaluated using several metrics. The omission rate measures the fraction of test localities not predicted as suitable, while the proportional predicted area indicates how much of the landscape is predicted as suitable. Receiver operating characteristic ROC analysis provides a threshold-independent measure, summarizing performance across all possible thresholds. The area under the ROC curve AUC is a key indicator, with higher values reflecting better discrimination between suitable and unsuitable areas. Both MaxEnt and GARP produced predictions that were significantly better than random. However, MaxEnt often achieved higher AUC values, indicating better discrimination of suitable habitats. For the sloth, both models performed well, but MaxEnt provided more nuanced suitability maps. For the rodent, MaxEnt consistently outperformed GARP, especially when additional variables like potential vegetation were included. These results highlight MaxEnt's strengths in handling complex ecological data and presence-only records. MaxEnt produces continuous suitability maps with values ranging from 0 to 100, allowing for detailed interpretation of habitat quality. GARP, in contrast, generates discrete predictions indicating presence or absence. When visualizing the results, areas with higher MaxEnt values represent stronger predictions of suitability. This continuous output provides flexibility in setting thresholds and interpreting gradients of habitat quality, which can be especially useful for conservation planning. The brown-throated sloth, both MaxEnt and GARP predicted suitable conditions across much of lowland Central and South America, including the Amazon and Atlantic forests. However, MaxEnt more accurately excluded non-forested areas, such as the Cerrado and Llanos, especially when potential vegetation was included. This demonstrates MaxEnt's ability to integrate categorical variables and refine predictions based on ecological knowledge. Microrhizomes minutus, MaxEnt predicted suitable habitats primarily within the Andes, closely matching the species' known range. GARP, on the other hand, tended to overpredict, including areas outside the species' actual distribution. MaxEnt's predictions were more precise, reflecting the species' ecological requirements and barriers to dispersal. This precision is especially valuable for species with restricted or fragmented ranges. Adding potential vegetation as a categorical variable improved MaxEnt's predictions, especially for the sloth. Non-forested areas were more accurately excluded, resulting in maps that better matched ecological reality. GARP, while capable of handling categorical data, did not show the same level of improvement. This highlights MaxEnt's flexibility and effectiveness in integrating diverse data types for ecological modeling. No model is perfect. MaxEnt's predictions are limited by the quality and completeness of occurrence and environmental data. If key variables are missing or occurrence records are biased, the model may not capture the full ecological niche. Additionally, projecting models into new regions or future climates requires caution, as relationships may change. Recognizing these limitations is essential for responsible application of species distribution model. Model errors often have a spatial context. For example, if occurrence records are missing from certain habitat types, the model may underestimate suitability in those areas. In the rodent case study, MaxEnt's predictions were less accurate in montane grasslands due to limited training data. Smoothing techniques or additional regularization can help address such issues, but ultimately, better data coverage leads to better model. MaxEnt offers several advantages. It requires only presence data, can handle both continuous and categorical variables, and produces continuous suitability maps. Its mathematical rigor and flexibility make it suitable for a wide range of ecological applications. MaxEnt's ability to differentiate habitat quality within suitable areas provides valuable information for conservation planning and ecological research. While MaxEnt is computationally efficient, especially in recent versions, large datasets and complex models can still require significant processing time and storage. Compared to GARP, MaxEnt produces smaller output files and generally runs faster, especially as the number of models increases. Advances in software and hardware continue to make these analyses more accessible to researchers worldwide. Species distribution models like MaxEnt are invaluable for conservation planning. They help identify areas of high suitability for threatened species, guide reserve design, and assess the potential impacts of climate change or habitat loss. By providing detailed, data-driven maps, MaxEnt supports evidence-based decision-making for biodiversity protection. Ongoing research aims to refine MaxEnt's use in ecological modeling. Key areas include determining the minimum data needed for reliable predictions, improving regularization to avoid overfitting, and addressing sampling bias in occurrence records. Integrating new types of environmental data and developing better thresholding rules are also active areas of development. As data availability and computational tools improve, MaxEnt's applications will continue to expand. Natural history museums and field surveys are rich sources of occurrence data for species distribution modeling. Efforts to digitize and share these records have greatly expanded the data available for MaxEnt and similar tools. As more data become accessible, models will become more accurate and comprehensive, supporting global biodiversity research and conservation. Increasing availability of fine-resolution environmental data, such as climate layers and land cover maps, enhances the power of species distribution models. These data allow for more detailed and accurate predictions, especially when combined with robust modeling methods like MaxEnt. As remote sensing and environmental monitoring technologies advance, the potential for ecological modeling continues to grow. MaxEnt is widely used to predict how species distributions may shift under future climate scenarios. By projecting models onto future climate data, researchers can identify areas at risk of species loss or potential new habitats. These insights are critical for proactive conservation and for understanding the broader impacts of global change on biodiversity. Choosing the right threshold to convert continuous suitability maps into binary predictions is a key challenge. The optimal threshold depends on the application, data quality, and the balance between omission and commission errors. Researchers often use statistical rules or expert judgment to set thresholds, but developing automated, data-driven methods remains an active area of research. Sampling bias in occurrence records can affect model accuracy. For example, records may be clustered near accessible areas, leaving other regions underrepresented. MaxEnt and other methods are being refined to account for such biases, using techniques like background sampling or bias files. Addressing sampling bias is crucial for producing reliable and generalizable models. One of MaxEnt's strengths is its ability to produce continuous predictions of environmental suitability, rather than simple binary maps. This allows for more nuanced interpretation and supports applications like reserve design, where prioritizing areas of highest suitability can be critical. Continuous outputs also facilitate integration with other spatial planning tools. Interpreting the outputs of species distribution models requires ecological knowledge and careful consideration of data limitations. Suitability maps should be viewed as hypotheses about where a species could occur, not definitive statements. Field validation and expert input are important for refining models and ensuring their relevance for management decisions. MaxEnt is particularly useful for modeling rare or endangered species, where data are often limited to a few occurrence records. Its ability to work with small sample sizes and presence-only data makes it a valuable tool for conservationists seeking to identify critical habitats and prioritize protection efforts. As new types of environmental and biological data become available, MaxEnt and similar models can be adapted to incorporate them. For example, remote sensing data, genetic information, and citizen science observations can all enhance model accuracy and ecological relevance. The flexibility of MaxEnt's framework supports ongoing innovation in ecological modeling. Success of species distribution modeling depends on collaboration among researchers, data sharing, and open access to tools and datasets. Initiatives to digitize museum collections, share environmental data, and develop open-source software have greatly expanded the possibilities for ecological research. MaxEnt's availability as free software exemplifies this collaborative spirit. Case studies of the sloth and rodent demonstrate how MaxEnt can produce biologically meaningful predictions, matching known distributions and highlighting areas for further exploration. These examples show the value of integrating ecological knowledge, high-quality data, and advanced modeling techniques to inform conservation and research. Summary: MaxEnt is a powerful tool for modeling species distributions using presence-only data. It outperforms many traditional methods, especially when data are limited or absence information is unavailable. By producing continuous suitability maps and integrating diverse environmental variables, MaxEnt supports a wide range of ecological and conservation applications. As environmental challenges intensify, tools like MaxEnt will play an increasingly important role in understanding and protecting biodiversity. Ongoing improvements in data collection, modeling techniques, and computational power will further enhance our ability to predict and manage species distributions in a changing world. This research was made possible by the collaboration of scientists, institutions, and funding agencies. Special thanks go to the American Museum of Natural History, AT&T Labs Research, and the many contributors of occurrence and environmental data. The development and success of MaxEnt reflect the collective efforts of the ecological and data science communities. Thank you for joining us on this journey through maximum entropy modeling and species distribution prediction. MaxEnt stands out as a robust, flexible, and accessible tool for ecological research and conservation. By leveraging presence-only data and advanced statistical methods, it helps us better understand the patterns of life on Earth and supports efforts to protect biodiversity for future generations.